Myself and 30 other science and reason-loving Tennesseans just took a trip out to Dayton, Tennessee to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the Scopes monkey trial. If you don't support the separation of church and state, call us, because the show's starting right now. What is up, everybody? Today is July 13th, 2025. I'm your host, Rarity, and joining me today is the always amazing JMike. What's up, brother?
Ooh, not much. I made the like noob error of I don't know, being on like a show, which is like having the video up in the background, and then I'm like hearing double SR. I'm like, oh my God, what is happening? And I'm like, I'm a professional. So, so everybody knows I'm a professional.
For a moment there, you were really, really concerned. You were like, why am I hearing so much of SR? There's too much out there already. I get it. That's fair. That's fair, man.
I almost was like, SR, your voice is like doing something weird. I don't know if you're like a lizard person or something.
You know what? I have been accused. I have been accused of such things, you know. The jury's still out, you know. But you know, what have you been up to, man? How have you been? What you been doing?
I've been really good. I've had some really good news. I wish I could share and stuff, but I can't at the moment. But I've had some really awesome things happen. So I'm actually in a really good state of mind, and I'm feeling awesome. So
that's fantastic, man.
Yeah, it's really good.
Really good. And I am definitely, I don't know if we're just both riding the same wave of goodness and stuff. Cause like I was saying in the intro, I just had this awesome trip out to this tiny little town in Tennessee where 100 years ago, the John T. Scopes monkey trial took place. And myself and a bunch of other people were organizing this, and we all got out there and hung out in the town, and we watched the whole reenactment of the trial. If you're not familiar with this is actually a really, really cool, interesting moment that happened in the United States where teaching science and evolution was legally restricted in the state of Tennessee for about 40 to 50 years. And this guy, John Scopes, was put on trial for it and was convicted of breaking the law. So super, super fascinating time in history. And it's so cool that it was so close to us. And we got a really cool community of secular and non-religious, humanist kinds of people here in the Middle Tennessee. Yes, folks, even in the buckle of the Bible Belt, we sinners and atheists are there. But before we go any further,
you didn't set up like, you didn't tell everyone how you set it up for me and everyone like backstage, and you just like sent the image or whatever. And I'm sitting there like, it's like an image like everybody's like, they got the outfits on, they're looking the part, and then like SR just in the chair with like 2025 clothes, and I'm like, he didn't give like a lot of background for it, he just kind of sent the image, and I'm like, is he like an actor now? He's like Hollywood SR doing these roles, trying to find like, I can find an atheist role here and put us on the map or something. And I'm sitting there like trying to think, like, what is this? And it was like this reenactment kind of thing, right? Yeah, but I'm sitting there like, maybe it's just the case they're like doing a dry run with him. Everybody else has job security and they're fine. Like, you can all wear the clothes for the movie, but SR, we're just not sure about you.
Yeah, we don't know that you're gonna stay.
Kind of coming off like a lizard person with these weird voices.
Yeah. A couple of us got picked to be on the jury, and the jury has lines in the play, and so they literally just handed us, you know, a little script, and we got to go up there and say a few lines, and it was a super, super fun time. It was an absolutely incredible thing, and you know, that's the type of stuff that I love, that community organizing, that all of us getting together and being in the same place. And in fact, I know it's already out there, but I'm not going to mention it just yet. But JMike, you and I are going to be getting together here before too long, even not too long, and we'll tell you guys more about that and how you can come hang out with JMike and Scott Dickey and Forrest Valkai and Kelly Laughlin, and all the amazing people with the ACA. But before we do that, I have to tell you, the Atheist Experience is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. I freaking love it, and that's what I was talking about today, and I love that topic. And you know what, man? We got some calls, so we're just gonna go right into it. What do you think?
That's why I'm here for the big bucks.
Awesome, man. Well, the check is in the mail, but we are going to go
Made
out
out to $0.
That's right. That's right. Oh, they gave you a raise. That's great. We are going to go out to New Jersey.
It's all for the love, man. This is a real thing. You know?
That's right. We're going to talk with Marianne. No pronouns given, is a theist and says they've got personal experience, scientific evidence, and historical evidence leading them to Christianity. Well, Marianne, this is exactly what we want to hear. You are on the show with JMike and Circularity. What's up?
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Hi, how are you? Good.
What you got for us today?
I'm already
Hello?
skeptical. Okay.
Sure.
Oh, yeah, it sounds like
Oh,
AI
sorry. It
or
looks
something.
like there's like a little bit of a lag between the lines.
Okay.
Probably is. Probably is.
I'm
Robotic
not AI.
and weird. I was like, this is sounding very weird to me already. Sorry about that.
What do you got for us today, Marianne? It sounds like you've got a couple of different pieces of evidence and some personal experience. What would you say is the strongest reason that you believe in Christianity?
Okay, so I'm just going to leave my opinion out of it because what I think, and probably we're going to have to agree to disagree, but I'm just going to leave my opinion out of it, and you can just Google the stats that I'm going to give you or the information that I can give you.
Well, that's
you can
actually
go
not
ahead and
really.
Google it, and you can
Hold
find
on,
out
that's not
yourself.
really how we. It's not really how we run the show, though. We don't like. I mean, there might be things that I need to look into later or something, right? That's perfectly fine. But what we want to do is have a dialogue.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Right, yeah.
So
So I'm just going to give you. Yeah. So I'm just. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay. So I'm just going to say that the Bible was written over a period of over 1,500 years, right? On 3 different continents in 3 different languages, Greek, Hebrew, and Aramaic, and 40 different writers with over 63,000 correlations, yet they all come together to say one story.
Do they?
The death and the resurrection of Christ.
Do they say one
There's
story
also
though?
over
Real quick,
350
hang on,
messianic
Marianne. I know
prophets.
you have some more stuff, but I want to make sure that we're all being honest here.
Yeah.
Do
a
they-
bit at a time?
Do they really all say one singular story? Are you familiar with Professor Joel Baden and the documentary hypothesis?
So they foreshadow the Old Testament. A lot of the stories foreshadow the death.
Well, hold on. You were just at Marianne. You were asked a
Uh,
question. Marianne, you were asked a question.
I'm sorry.
You were asked a question. It's okay if you didn't hear it, but
Yeah, I can. So you I'm sorry, I must have missed it then. So the
Yeah,
question was, are you familiar with Joel Baden's work, Dr. Joel Baden's work, and the documentary hypothesis?
Are you familiar with Sir Lionel LeCoux?
okay.
I am,
Marianne-
I am, but are you familiar with the thing that I asked first? Because that's actually really important. You used a concept. You didn't say the word univocal, but that's what you were getting at, which means that there is essentially
Here.
one voice, which is how the literature people describe it. One author writing all of the narrative. So if you go take a look at, say, The Lord of the Rings. It is very clear from start to finish of that entire series that the same person wrote it, because we all have different styles of writing. We all have different words and phrases that we use. The concept of a univocal Bible, for instance, has really not been a part of scholarship for a long time now. Nobody who studies the Bible says that all of the authors and all of the stories are pointing in the same direction. I just think that's a really fair thing for us to touch base on first. We can move on, but I really do think you should look into Joel Baden's work.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, and you can also look up Sir Lionel LeCoux. He was.
I am familiar with that, and it doesn't address anything of the documentary hypothesis.
Yes.
I think it's interesting that you bring that up when you aren't familiar with the documentary hypothesis.
Yeah, I was
But
literally
again,
about to
it
say
doesn't-
that. It's really weird that it just sounds like this weird deflection that you want to I'm. We haven't talked for a long time, but at the moment you haven't convinced me that you're like listening to SR, you're just kind of thinking about the next thing to say in response. Is that a fair assessment?
Oh no, I just want to continue my thought because you.
Yeah, I know, but look, this is yeah, I know this is a dialogue, right? And we have a show, and we will cut people off when we're having discussions with them because we want to understand, and I'm not going to let people just steamroll, right? I think that's a reasonable position to have, to just not let someone steamroll. If you go watch the last week that I did, watch how many times the callers interrupted me and I stopped talking. I think interruptions are healthy. There's times where I'm trying to make a point and I don't want to be interrupted, right? But we have to move at this one pace at a time. Your response to SR there just seemed like you weren't really digesting what was said to you, right? And I don't even want to get to my points until we tie this knot, right? And it's really hard to do that because it doesn't sound like you're listening.
So you asked me a question.
I was trying to make sure.
I'm listening, but you asked me a question. What do you think? So I said, I'm going to give you a couple of things that you can maybe look up later. And I was in the middle.
Yeah, but I'm not. What did I say to that? What did I say to that? I said, look, there might be some things that I need to look up later, and that's perfectly fine. But what I'm not going to do is use the call as a grocery list of Googling, right? I'm not going to. That's not how I perform. That's not how SR performs. It's not how the show performs. It's not what we're doing here. We want to have a dialogue, right? So if you're not like. I don't know, like Peter 3:15, right? Am I? Or I'm sorry, am I getting the verse?
Yeah, I think it's something like that.
Yeah, right.
Where you're supposed to be ready to give your testimony. And
it's to me, this is not going to be like. I would rather just move on if what you're going to do is just do this like grocery list thing, right? So like, let's try this, and maybe we can get back to it, right? Let me ask you a question.
I don't want to do a grocery list. I just don't want to leave my opinion out of it so that we're not in a constant.
Well, I want to know your opinion. So if you're just,
we do want to know your opinion. In fairness,
yeah, we want to know what you think, like why you hold the beliefs you do. I can tell you why I hold the beliefs I do. But do you think that Mark and John detail the exact same day of the resurrection or of the crucifixion and resurrection? Do you think the crucifixion was on the same day in Mark and John?
In their own perspectives, yes.
In their own perspectives. So
sounds like a no. I just want to say, Marianne, if we're being, hang on real quick, if we're just being straightforward, right? That sounds like what you're saying there is a no. Because like if JMike came up to me and he said to me like, hey, SR, is your gumball machine and your stained glass window of a cow in the same room? And I would say, from their own perspectives, that doesn't sound like a yes. And I think that's the more direct and honest answer. Now, there can be reasons as to why those can be harmonized, right? We can get to that. But the first thing we got to do is we got to just be direct and just be real. Just be real people about it. Like, no, they don't, Marianne. And you believe that. You believe that they don't, but they can be harmonized. And that's okay. We'll get to that. But yeah, what is that harmonization? If it isn't just an obvious yes, what is that answer then that makes those the same?
Okay, so I'm going to go back to Sir Lionel LeCoux, which is
oh my God, no! You know what's awesome about this show is we have a mute button, and we can just use it. And I went right to it, and you got it before me, right? Good. So if you want to have a show where like, you know, you just want atheists to call in to give you stuff to Google and then look up and then not answer questions and go back to the thing and be totally disrespectful. You can have that show, like have the disrespectful Marianne show. I don't care. That's your prerogative, right? We are doing something here. We have a format. The format is having a dialogue. The format is also not just ignoring what we say and then just going right back. You're being extremely disrespectful. And I'm happy to move. I have other callers. There's a theist in the call. I'm looking right here. It says, wants to give an argument for God or arguments for God's existence, right? They've called in about philosophical arguments. They might have something like I might be able to like chew on, right? Maybe I don't agree at the end of the day. Like you said, agree to disagree, but at least there's something for me to chew on. You're just like, Google this stuff, or I'm going to go back to this stuff. So let's try this one last time. And if not, I'm happy to just, SR, if you want to talk, I'm done. I'm losing my patience with this caller. I don't find them to be an honest person in discussion. So I'm going to ask you, if it's one person and they detail a day like Friday or Saturday or 2 different days or 2 different times of the day, like noon or whatever, right? Or in the morning, 2 different times, and it's by the same person, it's a contradiction, right? And if it's several different people, they contradict each other, right? I don't really know which way you interpret this, that it works out. So maybe we get back to what SR asked you about to help you, which is harmonizing these, trying to help us figure out what gets rid of this, because we're not saying, gotcha. We want to know how this is explained, but talking about, Sir McDougan is not really interesting to me right now.
Yeah, we've still got you muted, Marianne, and I'm going to unmute you here in just a second. And when I do that, you're going to hear a beep, and that's okay. Just give me just 1 second, because I want to just try and we'll just rewind it all. Okay, and we'll just start out with this. And before I ask the question, I'm just going to help you out as much as I can, which is go right into it and give us the best thing you got. Okay, so it sounds like what you're saying to us today is that all of these stories in the Bible were written by a single voice, were written with a single intention in mind. Why? Why do you believe that?
All scripture is given by inspiration of God, correct?
How do you know that?
Because there is, again, I will say it again, it was written over a period of 1,500 years on 3 different continents, 3 different languages, with over 63,000 correlations.
Do you see why that's circular, Marianne? Do you see why you've come back to the exact same spot to answer why you were in the same spot?
Please
do you understand?
We understand the Jordan Peterson of hyperlinking the text and all this kind of stuff.
Marianne, I have looked it up. And more importantly than you or I looking it up, literally thousands, millions potentially at this point of human beings for hundreds of years have not only looked it up, but dug it up from the ground. And that's why I'm really trying to be generous here and say I am very, very sure that Marianne is a smart and capable human being who just hasn't yet come across what is considered consensus scholarship for a long time now. The documentary hypothesis is something that undeniably lays out why the Bible could not possibly have been written from the same singular viewpoint and authorship. It's absolutely impossible. And the fact that you say, well, the reason that the Bible is from one voice is because the Bible is from one voice. That is, in fact, just circular reasoning. And it's a poor way to come to a conclusion. And I feel very confident that if anybody else brought you that same argument, Marianne, because you are smart, you are capable, you would look at them and say, I don't know, man, that just doesn't seem to hold water to me. And that's okay. We all have to do better when it comes to our own critical thinking. I really, really do think one of the easiest things you could do is just go look up Professor Joel Baden's work. Shit, go listen to Kip Davis, go listen to Dr. Josh Bowen, Dr. Megan Lewis, Dr. Bart Ehrman.
Dr. Kill.
Dr. Kill, right? Yeah. I mean,
Kill.
there's so many people that we could list right now, But in all honesty, what you need to do is just get a basis for it, which is, hey, a lot of people for a really long time who've been studying this stuff way more than you and I ever could at this point in our lives. They say something really different from what you're saying. And that's important to look up.
This is an extremely fringe position to take.
Yeah. And it's just where you're starting.
Yes, or used to be.
Say again?
What? There are Christian scholars like Dr. Mark Goodacre that What? Famous atheist?
Say again. Hang on, I'm sorry.
That's my bad.
Go ahead, Marianne. Say it again.
I said, did you look up C.S. Lewis? Wasn't he initially a famous atheist?
Oh my gosh.
Does that matter? I know who C.S. Lewis is, but you know he's an author, right? He's not a historian. He's not a textual critic. He's not
even a good philosopher.
Right. He's not right. He's barely a philosopher.
I wouldn't call,
he's an author. He's a writer. He wrote entertainment stuff, which is fantastic. I love The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I greatly enjoyed reading that book when I was a child. I mean, what a wonderful series. And sure, there's a lot of Christian iconography in it, but none of that makes it true. It just makes it the stuff that he enjoyed. If somebody goes out there and writes a brand new My Little Pony story, that doesn't make it fucking real. These ponies aren't actually running around talking to each other. It's just a fun story for people. But truly, if you just go and type in the words Dr. Joel Baden, B-A-D-E-N, I promise, Marianne, you will find a lot of really good information. And a lot of really good information, by the way, that exactly like JMike was just saying, people like Dr. Mark Goodacre, there are so many Christians, truly Bible-believing lovers of Christ themselves, who disagree with the statement that you're saying. And I think there's really solid evidence for their claims.
And they do, because it's indefensible. Your position is indefensible, right? And like, it's like you telling me to look up something just tells me that you don't like. There's things that I know about, the apocalyptic Jesus stuff. That's a pretty like standard view in New Testament scholarship, and I love spouting my mouth off about that. Not like because like, oh, I want to come off smart. I want to talk about the reasons why I think, Jesus, if he had existed, this is the best kind of case that we have, right? Mm-hmm. I want to be part of the project of reconstructing the historical Jesus and getting the best informed position. But I don't know. I mean, could you offer us like reasons that you have within you, and not like go Google this thing? Because like, that's just not very interesting. It's just really not interesting.
Yeah. What do you want to do, JMike? You want to keep talking, or you want to move?
I want to ask. I want to see if she'll give me something from her own head.
Okay. Yeah. Marianne, what is something from you personally?
Why should I believe God exists? Give me reasons. Yeah, go ahead. It's just so disorganized. This whole thing's so disorganized. Like, it's like trying to get you to go on the one path of like talking about what SR brought up originally about the documentary hypothesis. And then I'm like, okay, well, you're not going to answer that. Let's try something else. So let's talk about, you said that it's the same, person in these cases, probably for the gospel. Like, I imagine you think that the gospels are harmonized, right, in some way. So I just point out like, okay, well, presumably you don't think that the gospel writers are all the same, right? You probably think it's like Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John, right? And they disagree. And I just wanted to know how you would reconcile that. Sure. But what you did was not actually give me anything. You just wanted to go back to the other thing.
They do disagree, though, by your own definition, Marianne. Well, you said it earlier. You already admitted to it. You already admitted to the fact that the Gospels cannot possibly be in agreement.
I said, can I give you an analogy?
Yeah.
You can, but it won't be helpful.
Can I give you an analogy?
You can, but it won't be helpful.
Okay. Well, I think it will be, so that maybe you can understand why.
Go for it. You don't have to explain why you're giving an analogy. We understand. But the problem is that the analogy will fail very quickly in a very obvious way that won't relate to this situation. An analogy should equal up, but this one won't. But go ahead, Marianne.
Yeah, you need properties in both cases that are like analogous.
It will. I promise you it will.
Okay.
I promise you it will. So
one of us will be wrong.
I promise you it will. If you let it,
just go ahead.
Have an open mind.
We don't need to meta on this. Okay. It's actually driving me nuts. Let's just go.
All right.
Sorry, I just get impatient when we talk about. No, it's not that. It's like talking about the thing we're about to talk about.
Sorry, there's a lag in the line.
That's fine.
What I'm trying to say is basically, if me and you are standing on a corner of a street, and there's a car in front of us, okay, and two cars, whatever, they collide, okay, and we're both watching the accident, and the police came to me and asks me what I saw, and I give him my eyewitness account of what I saw, and then he came to you and asked you for your report and see what you saw. You could your report will be not 100% the same as what I saw.
I've muted you because I knew that's what you were going to say.
Fine.
And I'll point out to you exactly the problem here. There is no issue if what the Gospels said was something like, yeah, I saw like a handful of people, maybe it was 5, maybe it was 7, could have been as much as 10, but definitely no more or no less. And then the next one said, well, it might have been a dozen. or it could have been as low as 8, you know? Those two things would be analogous to what you were bringing us just a moment ago. But that is not the problem in the Gospels.
And it's even worse. It's even worse, yeah, because like you have that, and then on top of that, what you have is when I'm trying to inquire about your view, I have 2 dates that the Gospel tell about Jesus's crucifixion, and I want to say, in virtue of what is one of those right rather than the other? Because Correct. They could both just be wrong. So I could just go, for the sake of charity, which there's like no reason I should even be this charitable, but I like to give the toys to play with because I really think that these positions are indefensible, that you can show this better by giving them more toys to play with. So let's just assume that one of them has to be right. He was crucified on this date. I think Jesus was crucified, right? Okay, great. That's fine, right? And I don't have like the most immense evidence that's going to convince my atheist friends that don't believe that or something, right? But I'm happy to go on board with that. So we got Jesus, he's crucified, and we have these 2 dates. One of them is right. In virtue of what is one right over the other? Right? It's either Saturday, it's not. It's either 12 o'clock, it's not. Right? Like, I need
There's
to
either
understand.
500 or 2. I mean, that's the issue. It is not just as simple as JMike said the shirt was slightly reddish orange, and I said maybe it was a burnt umber. Like, no. It is a matter of it was solid black versus solid white. Those are the differences that have to be reconciled. And I honestly think you know that, Marianne.
I mean, otherwise, how do I know that one of the views is justified if what's not being given to me is something justificatory, right? It needs to be a reason other than like Googling it may possess that embedded into the Google that I do. But it's going to be hard for me to navigate through that. Like, and with all of that information, if someone like yourself believes it and has reasons to believe it, you just share your reasons with me.
Right. Look, JMike, I think
I'm not done.
I'm ready to move on
I don't think it'll be forthcoming.
Marianne, I really believe that if you continue studying down this path, as you have been, you will find out the correct information. I really do believe that. If, however, you are combative and uninterested in digging in further and simply ready to deflect from your reasoning to others, it'll be difficult. So thank you so much for calling. I think you are definitely very capable. I think all of our callers are capable, to be honest, you know, even though I sometimes yell and I get a little angry, and I might even say bad words or call them names every now and then. But truly, I really do believe that if you are calling into this show, right, you are interested in this stuff, and sometimes it's just simply a matter of the fact that we haven't come across the information, and so we like to help provide that when we can. Sometimes
try to streamline it for me so I don't have to do all this digging. Like, did Jesus want me to Google stuff? Like, you know, this is just odd to me. Like,
all those shepherds many a year ago didn't have the Google machine. I mean, what the fuck were they? They weren't on TikTok. There must be other arguments and reasons. I mean, there's all these Christian philosophers for years that have gone through syllogism after syllogism. I mean, come on, you know, have a deeper, stronger faith if you're going to have one. I mean, I don't think you should. I think you should go for reason and evidence and logic, but hey, whatever, if you're going to have one.
Sorry, do you have this thing that I do, unrelated? Sorry, this is
oh no, go ahead.
We're sidebarring here.
Yeah.
Just for the audience, it's a private conversation now, right here between me and us. Do you get this really annoying fucking thing where like one of your hairs just like touches your nose and it's
oh my god, dude, all the time. And like one of the worst things ever is when like I'm out somewhere and this, you know, a stray hair is like right across my face, right, and I go like this. And it doesn't get it. And then I go like this, and it doesn't get it. Then I go like this, and it doesn't get it.
Oh my god!
Where the fuck is it?
You're speaking to my non-existent soul right now.
It's the weirdest thing ever. It's like how where is this hair coming from? Like, did I walk through a spider web and not notice it?
That's literally what I. God, get out of my brain! Lizard person.
It's terrible. Yeah. You know, that was the other thing too about, you know, having long hair for a while. It was like other people, you know, I've been out places with somebody and they're like, oh man, there's a hair in my food. And I'm like, I think I've eaten 3 already.
Oh dude, this would be gross for people, but maybe if someone's feeling it did something embarrassing today or something. I once hugged the wrong person at a funeral. So if you ever feel really, really embarrassed, just think of me like being so awkward and hugging this random guy. But anyway, so bad. It was the worst moment of my life. It was so terrible.
Awesome.
But I've like literally pulled the hair out of my throat.
Yeah. Same.
The long-haired fellows and ladies and non-binary people, you all know. So
That would honestly make the story of Jesus so much more believable if he was like on the doing the Sermon on the Mount, and it actually started with blessed are the sorry about that wind.
Yeah. He's magical. He could just probably like clears his throat of it.
Right. Well, we have a couple of other really cool calls I'm excited to get to. But before we do that, I am going to tell you about something that is so freaking cool. It can only happen once a year because there is so much awesomeness contained in this one event that if it were to happen more than once every 365 days exactly, the world might implode. That's right, folks. It's time for the Bat Cruise 2025, August 16th, 7 p.m. Folks, get your tickets now because they are gonna go fast. They are selling out like crazy. We have already sold out the early Bat special tickets. That's right, nice. Early Bat special tickets. No birds here, but don't worry, you can still get your tickets today. And honestly, they're really affordable, guys. That's a really, really great time. If you are in or near the Austin area, it is a super, super awesome time to get to hang out with a bunch of people. Like I said, JMike's going to be there. I'm going to be there. Scott Dickey's going to be there. Yep. Forrest Valkai's going to be there. It is an awesome experience. The largest urban bat population in the world hangs out under this bridge, and Congress Avenue Bridge, I think. And it is an awesome time to just see all these bats kind of in unison come out. So tiny.cc/batcruise is the place to go. And
let me set them up with a little visual, if you don't mind. Like,
please.
So you'll get to like come on Sunday, even after, you can come to the studio and hang out. So, and then like we go out that night, the Bat Cruise night, we go out, like if anyone wants to come hang out in that weekend, if you can find a way, just contact me anyway, to emails or whatever. I'd be happy to meet up with anyone, grab a, well, if you're old enough, right, we can get a drink, we can get some food or whatever. Like, but it is awesome. It's, it's obviously serious, but it's also a party. It's fun. Yeah. So, we have serious discussions with people, but in an awesome environment. I said and awesome just then. That was
it's
really
it's
weird.
perfect.
Yeah.
It's perfect. It works to me. And truly, it is a phenomenal time. If you have never been, if you have been, you definitely want to get back to it. And there are a lot of ways that you can actually help out, even if you can't make it. So one of the easiest ways that you can do this is by going below the chat, clicking that donate button to the ACA. You can actually help purchase a ticket for a cast or crew member. And in fact, we've already got some incredible people that have donated already to this. So we want to, big, massive shout out and thank you to Tina B and Charles. You guys are what makes these festive community gatherings possible, and all the work that we do here at the ACA. So thank you so much, Tina B and Charles. And for everybody else out there, again, get your tickets now or send in a couple bucks, man. Help make this an awesome thing and just keep growing this community that's been around for, gosh, what now? I mean, almost 30 years it feels like this whole atheist community of Austin thing been going on. My God, you guys, that's freaking awesome. We got a good crew here.
The last 2 years I've done this, and then now this being the third, it's the thing I look forward to the most, like all year. And there's an arcade event near me that I get like a little kid about. I had to miss it this year, unfortunately. I was really bummed out for like a whole week, but this tops like anything I do in the year. So definitely come out. It's really, really fun.
Heck yeah. Tiny.cc/batcruise, folks. Get your tickets, make a donation, and we will see you there August 16th.
You can eat clam pizzas with Forrest and Jamie, because apparently that's what they did.
No way.
Yeah,
clam
it was like
pizza?
They had I went and get pizza with them, and they they got like clam chowder pizza or some shit. It was, I couldn't look at them while they were eating it. I was just like, what? Forrest said, I'll try anything. Let's do this. He also went to like some bar and he made us have like pickled eggs or something like that.
Okay,
like
that I've tried, yeah, but
he is awesome to go out with because he'll always give you like, I don't remember things I go out to do with people sometimes, maybe because of the drinking or whatever. But he always gives something for you to fucking take away to remember.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh yeah, he had like pickled eggs that one time at this bar. Yeah.
Pickled eggs and clam chowder on a pizza. That sounds terrible.
It was interesting.
That sounds horrible.
I wasn't a fan.
Well, we have some other great calls, and we are going to grab them here in just a second. But we do still have open lines, folks. So if you are interested in yelling at me or JMike, maybe we said something wrong or stupid, or maybe you very much believe crystals have magical powers, or that ghosts and demons are real. Any one of those things. Feel free to call in and yell at us about. But we are going to go out to Arizona. We are going to talk with Sam. He, him, wants to talk about some scientific and historic arguments for God. Well, that's what we're here for, Sam. You are on the Atheist Experience with JMike and Circularity. What you got?
Hello. So,
hey,
I'm not trying to argue for the existence of a God of any particular religion. Let's just call it general theism.
Sure. I think you're going to have a harder time doing that than picking a specific religion, just so you know, Sam. But
yeah, I don't really know.
Yeah, I'm not trying to
go ahead.
argue for the existence. I'm not done yet. So, let's just call it general theism, because even if every single religion is wrong, it wouldn't necessarily point to atheism, because we can still argue for the existence of a God that we just don't know anything about, you know?
How would you do that, Sam? How would you argue for anything that you don't know anything about?
I'm really, what is it we're arguing for?
Well, what would you accept as a good argument for the existence?
So you don't have an answer. I just want to point this out. This is hang on. Yeah, Sam, this is really, really important here. Now, you could have just misspoke, and you can just easily get right back on this horse. This is a real simple one, right? But you said you're going to argue for the existence of something that you can't know anything about or don't know anything about. And it sounds like you realize already that's not really a possibility, is it?
I mean, you have to appreciate why SR would want to jump on you after you did that.
What I was trying to say is that we could... Can I finish?
There's a delay.
Yeah, that's actually my bad. Sorry.
Of a more, what I was trying to say is that we could argue for the existence of a more deistic type God, like a non-personal type God that we can learn
that's
about
fine,
from, stuff like natural
that's
theology,
fine,
if you know what I'm
but
trying to say.
You can't make the claim that you can argue for something you don't know anything about, right? So even if it is a God of deism, one that is defined as a God that we can't know anything about, you can't do that. It doesn't make sense. And that's why I was saying right from the rip, Sam, you're probably going to have a much better time going for a specific version of a deity, because the generalized, well, God could be like this, does not have any distinguishing criteria between all of the other could be's in that scenario.
Yeah, like think of like a bare designer, right? Like we just strip all these properties and we have just like this bare designer, right? Well, it's not like if you just take away all these properties, a designer could design and they could decide to refrain from designing, right? They could just go, well, yeah, I could design this thing, but I actually think it's better just to exist alone, just by myself, so I won't design, right? You don't even get the expectation that the bare designer would even design something, because it's perfectly compatible with the hypothesis that the bare designer designs nothing at all, right? It just has the ability to design. So do you see how, like, it's really difficult how you're going to generate expectations when you look out in the world? I mean, what I see are scientific and historic arguments for God. I don't know, maybe you want to elucidate more on that, but like, if your argument's going to be like, well, there are, there's morals in the world, and so I have this bear designer thing. What best explains that is like general theism. Well, no, because it's perfectly compatible with general theism that they're like an amoral being and don't want, like morals at all, or the morals come as a side effect that they didn't know anything about. Because remember, we've stripped away like omniscience and stuff probably. Like, I don't know what we're adding into this. So it's not really clear. Like, I'd like to hear the setup, but it just preliminary, it just seems like you're wanting us to focus on this like vanilla austere corner of the room that no one actually believes in. And that's the part that frustrates me, because the way that, at least I want to hear your reasons, but when it comes to comparing my view to someone else's view, it's hard for me to go, yeah, my view is simpler than yours and it explains the data better if I haven't even heard your whole view, if I've just heard this like tiny little portion of the view, because maybe the rest of the stuff helps you, or maybe it inflates it even more, which is what I predict would happen. So hopefully that makes sense. But like, there's like several different angles why I'm anticipating like this is just, it'd be awesome if you wanted to talk about the thing you actually believe in, right? But it's fine. We can talk about general theism. I'll just assume that your actual position is indefensible and you're kind of like worried about arguing about it. But if you're not, feel free to do that.
Dude. Well, I was actually going to get to some points, but what you said about there being sort of like this evil God, that's actually a good point that you brought up. And I like to think that if there was such a thing as an evil God, then he wouldn't be God, because would you argue that exists?
Well, I didn't say evil. I said amoral, which means neither good or bad.
It's a good thing.
I didn't say evil God or immoral God. I said amoral God, right? That means neither good or bad. It's like a rock is amoral, right? It's not like a moral agent, right? It doesn't possess like anything normative, or it's just like a rock, right? It's not a moral agent. Like if a rock fell on your head, you wouldn't be like, hold the rock responsible. Well, there's somebody I know that would say that, but I'm not going to get into that.
All right.
So that's not even what I'm saying.
What makes you say that my position isn't indefensible?
You don't have any.
I misspoke.
I predict your position is indefensible because you don't want to talk about that, and you want to talk about this vanilla, austere corner of the room theism. So I just think that on the hypothesis that somebody wants to talk about this like general idea of theism, I think what I think the reason is for that, or the expectation, what I would expect if someone didn't want to talk about their view, is they would keep insisting and never get to their view. And it seems like I'm throughout the call getting evidence that supports my hypothesis, right? I have this hypothesis that you don't want to talk about your view and you'd rather talk about something more generalized, because if you get wrecked on it or something like that, however you're interpreting it, that's not the way I'm looking at it. But if that's the way you're seeing it, then you have this kind of safety net of general theism. And that's fine. Like I have friends that do believe in that. Like I know people that do. They give some pretty robust arguments, right? I don't accept them, but it takes a long time to get through and for them to explain. But I want to know what you believe. Like I'm so fucking over this idea of like calling in about general theism. Like I'll do it. It's fine. I have no problem with that. I'm not scared of that, but I really want to know what the person who's calling believes. That's what I'm interested in. Why you believe what you believe. I'm not interested in like, do we have knowledge? I don't fucking care. We believe things and we have reasons for believing things. And I want to know those reasons. My thing is very simple to understand. That's all I care about.
So let's try this, Sam. Because I know we've maybe gotten a little bit off of what we were originally, talking about. So let's do this. We're going to start all the way over again. And I'm going to bring you on and I'm going to say, hey, folks, we're going out to Arizona. We've got Sam, he's a theist, and he wants to talk about scientific and historic arguments for God. Well, hey, Sam, you're on the Atheist Experience, and we want to know, just pick one. Your favorite, the one you think is the best. Give us one scientific and or historic argument for the existence of God.
And don't ask us what we think.
Yeah.
Because that's irrelevant.
Okay, so all apologies for not being more specific, but my argument that I want to present is not a historical or scientific argument. It's more of a philosophical argument called the ontological argument. I'm sure you've heard that a million times before.
Yes.
And And
Yeah.
pretty much the God that I subscribe to is pretty much the God of the ontological argument, because if it's possible to think of
Just give the argument. Just give the argument. Just give the argument.
Then the God of
Give the argument. Just give the argument. There's different ontological argument is a category of arguments. There's modal ontological arguments.
There's multiples.
Right. So like, are you giving a modal ontological argument? Or are you giving some other type of ontological argument? I'm very familiar with like the category of ontological arguments. It doesn't make sense to be like, I'm arguing for the God of ontological arguments, right? Because they're not compatible. Like someone might not accept S5, for example, but still like hold some other type of ontological argument that doesn't deal with modality at all.
Well,
right.
I could give you the argument, but you keep talking over me for 20 years.
I asked. I'm muting you now, Sam. You're gonna give. I'm gonna unmute you, and you're gonna give the argument. But I'm correcting you because you said I believe in the God of ontological arguments, which is like a mouthful of a sentence, right? And the way to interpret that sentence, how you're saying that, is that like this God is compatible with like this one idea of this concept of God is compatible with all these arguments. But there's going to be people that run modal ontological arguments or different arguments where their versions of theism wouldn't be compatible with running a modal ontological argument, right? So just give your argument. I'm just correcting you on something you said. That was it. Maybe I shouldn't have. So just give your argument.
Okay, so let's define God as the greatest possible being, that which nothing greater can be conceived. And if we can think of something greater than that God, then that God just wouldn't be God. Mm-hmm. And so God as the greatest conceivable being must exist in reality to... oh
my God.
Really? You wasted all that time just for that? Like, that's it?
Fucking loser.
You're that scared?
What a fucking loser.
I know. I mean, what an absolutely
and like they get
sad...
off the phone, they're like, I did this thing. I'm a piece of shit. Did you see when I was a piece of shit on the internet? Did you see that? It was so cool. I would show this to all my family and friends. I would say, here's what I did on the internet. You fucking wouldn't, because you're a piece of shit, racist piece of shit. Go fuck yourself.
What's really interesting too is that like and you know, bigotry and hatred and so forth is illogical and you know so forth. But anyway, let me just put this out there, which is just simply like, you must be in 2025. You must be at least enough of not a dipshit to know how video editing works and like the internet and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like it can't possibly be the case.
We have an awesome team.
It can't possibly be the case that anybody in this day and age is so absolutely worthless of a human being that they don't recognize that, like, it'll never be shown, you know? Now, maybe even all of this discussion after the fact won't be either, but hey, I can say unequivocally, Sam, you better fucking hope your God's not real. Worthless fuck. Anywho, we do have an awesome crew, don't we, JMike? We have the best fucking crew ever. I wonder if we could see those incredible crew people. They are the greatest video audio operators in the world. Note takers, call screeners, chat moderators. They are responding to your emails. They are keeping the building running. They are the coolest motherfuckers out there. Way better than Sam. Yes, all good people.
I'm saying that mainly because half of my screen on there is covered up by a microphone that I had to get directions. I'm horrible. Yeah, I had to get like horrible directions, and so I saw Eli's face on there, and I was like, "Yeah, that's my boy." But everyone else, no disrespect, I could like see half of Greg's face. I think, man. You know.
Well, that's okay. We have a fantastic crew. They are back there crushing it, left and right. And you know what? If you want to show support for the crew, I've heard that you can type some things in chat, but another thing that you can do is you could actually go to tiny.cc/merch ACA, and you can buy AXP merch and wear it all around, all the time. Hang it in your window, put it on your car, give it to a friend that you fucking hate, whatever you want to do with it, do it. But just go get that stuff because they are awesome. I have a couple of shirts myself, and they're every so often, you know, there's some of the old really cool shirts that have, you know, come through for like a month.
Yeah.
They get shoved into the vault and they don't come out and they don't see the light of day for a while. But every so often they come back. So you gotta stay checking. You know, just put it on the schedule like every other week. Just go check the merch store. Just see if there's anything.
This actually gives me an opportunity to call. Yeah. I mean, no one did anything wrong here before I say something. I wanted to like phrase it as someone did something wrong. But when I went, I think Vern like, you know, took me out to the shed and showed me like some shirts and stuff. He's like, yeah, you know, take one if you can find one in your size. And I know Katie did that the year before as well. And so I looked through this box of shirts, and there was one that I found that I really liked. I thought was cool. It was just like a drawing of a tree, and it said, "Look at me." All right, so I put that off to the side. One of you motherfuckers that went to the back cruise last year took that shirt from me. I don't know which one of you took it. Now, in all fairness, I left it there. It's my fault. But somebody took it. I why don't you just be like, Vern's like, I put it back in the box, dude. I'm sorry.
I hope this year, as we are on the cruise, the bat's about to emerge from the bridge, somebody sheepishly walks up to you with a crumpled t-shirt in their hand and goes, JMike, I'm so sorry. Oh, that would be the best. That would be the best, man. But, you know, we have some other calls and we've got some time. So if you have a burning question, you have the best freaking evidence in the world. JMike and I are just complete and total dipshits, and we should clearly see this. You have time to get your calls in. But here's what I want to do first. Before we go to this, I want to read something that somebody actually wrote to you, Mike. Can you believe that? There's a comment out there. See, you had in the past compared hell to child abuse, and you called it special pleading to excuse one version of hell but not the other. And in response to that, we've got somebody out there that has written a nice little comment. They say, nope. People send themselves to hell by rejecting God. I mean, God has never sent anyone to hell. Same as if my kids refuse to come to my house when they're older. I'm not refusing them entry. They're choosing not to. So, I mean, clearly you're defeated there. Clearly your argument is destroyed. I mean, what do you have to say for yourself, Mr. JMike?
I mean, I was looking for the response part of the comment where it addressed the things that, you know, I said. What I would say is, how about this? Well, they probably not. I don't know if they'd be listening. I want them to just call in, have a dialogue. Wouldn't that be amazing? Let's have the commenter come in here and we just have a dialogue about it. That'd be amazing. So I'll extend that out to them, because I mean, I stand by what I said, and I don't see how that's a response to anything I said. I don't know how I'm sending myself when I'm, I mean, if I was a parent and I had the ability to make the baby that's about to come out be born with, like, I'm supposed to look at this baby like it's dirty rags, you know, it's worthless, just scum. And I have the ability to just not imbue those properties on it, you know, I think that would be the expectation of like a good being and stuff like that. So I'd be interested to have a conversation on what they think the expectations of a being that is good and what they would do versus the expectations of an evil being and what they would do. Because I think that they already believe in a pretty horrendous piece of shit, but that's just me.
Yeah. I hear this so much. I hear this response so much from believers that you're sending yourself there. But I mean, you're sending yourself there as much as you are sending yourself to the bottom of a lake with cement shoes because the mafia's been, you know, shaking you down for money. I mean, it is literally the exact same situation. It is completely analogous. And yet, for some reason, this is just a common interpretation and understanding amongst a lot of believers. And you know what? That's okay, because I got one apparently the other day. I was asking a caller if they would believe if Allah spoke directly to them, and they were a good Muslim and said no, of course not. Allah doesn't do that to anybody since Muhammad.
They read.
And I'm good for them, staying within the fold of Islam, staying within the ummah there, brother. But in response to that, we got this beautiful gem of a comment, which honestly might completely change my whole worldview. They said,
Oh, okay.
I hope you guys enjoy hell. So cool. Great. Can't wait to be there. Like, super excited, you know. I'm
Is that all
thrilled
they
for
said?
it. That's it. I hope you enjoy hell. That's all he fucking said.
I have my screen like this big so that I do better
That's all
at
it
looking
said.
at the camera. But yeah, I was like, that's
it.
That's it. That's all.
And
Okay, wow.
Just easy peasy, simple, just burning hell. Which, you know, I don't know. I just keep referencing what's that verse about Jesus saying, "Get away from me, I never knew you." I just keep trying to quote that every so often at the people.
Oh no, wait. I was thinking of get back, Satan.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, get behind
Jesus,
me.
relax, bro. It's okay, man.
Yeah.
It's really funny. It's really funny how like Mark is like gone crazy and his family's like trying to take him out of like the public eye and stuff. Like it's just so different, but it's all the same author, like the you know, and you know, harmonized, like Marianne says.
Yeah, or not, you know, whatever.
Or not.
We have some other calls, so I want to make sure we get to them. We are going to go to Connecticut. We've got Rich. He, him pronouns, is an atheist, and got some questions for myself and JMike. Well, that's what we're here for, Rich. You were on the show. What is up?
Hi, guys. My reason for calling is recently I've been alerted to the Council of Nicaea. And it seems that this is where the whole Jesus bullshit started. And I want to know, am I overlooking things? Do I have it wrong? Why don't I hear this mentioned more often? Could you guys straighten me out and help me out?
What do you take the Council of Nicaea to
fool myself?
Yeah, no. We want to make sure that, because I actually heard a lot of atheists kind of like, and I'm sure Secular has a lot more to say about this than me, but what's your understanding? I just kind of want to get a general understanding of like what was established at the Council of Nicaea.
Well, it seems to me that Constantine, that religion was dividing the empire. So he wanted to get one religion in the whole in the whole council, and he brought in all the bishops, and he paid for their transportation there, and he set all these guys up, and he said, "Bring all your information, bring everything you got. And what we'll do is we'll keep all the good stuff. We'll get rid of all the bad stuff, and we'll call it the Book of Books." And they took all the philosophy of the time, and they, like people rising from the dead, and they used all the juicy stuff, like the Virgin Mary, and they incorporated all this stuff to be used, to proclaim that Jesus is God and he was real. And I think there was over 300 bishops, and the final count was like 152 to 100. So I mean, it was really, but why don't I hear more of this mentioned? Is there a reason?
I can at least give
Take
some
it away, brother.
thoughts. I don't know that I'm the expert or anything.
I'm not either.
Yeah, for sure not. But
what Justin should be here.
Right. Yeah, Justin, or again, all those scholars we were mentioning earlier. But I think one of the reasons from the religious side, for instance, that you probably don't hear about it as much is because a lot more of the scholarly believers, a lot more of the individuals that have gone to divinity school and studied the history and so forth, those aren't the believers that are often being seen all over the internet, right? It's the ones, interestingly enough, that tend not to be as knowledgeable on things, that yell and scream. They tend to get a little bit more traction. But there are some people that do talk about it. And for instance, like I'll just mention Sean McDowell is a Christian apologist, a fairly well-known Christian apologist, been doing it for a long time, as his father, did as well his whole life. He's talked about the Council of Nicaea for sure. There are a bunch of different individuals that have talked about it, but I do think a lot of the Christians, the self-professed Christians, are not terribly knowledgeable on the history of their religion, and for good reason too, right? Like when I was a believer, we never talked about the Council of Nicaea because there was no point. It didn't get us to the conclusion that the pastor was attempting to get us to. We did talk about like persecution of Christians by the Romans, which is a real historical thing. We do have some documentation of it, but it's radically overblown, because it pushes a specific narrative for the congregation and the pastor, right? On the non-religious side, why we don't talk about it as much is because I would probably say it's one of those things for us on the atheist or non-religious side where we're like, yeah, I mean, that's the, they had that crap. So obviously it's not, as true as they're making it sound. Just because I will just say, just before any philosopher out there starts wanting to yell at us, just because something like a Council of Nicaea happens in a religion does not necessarily mean that the religion is false in and of itself. It should make one skeptical, though. I would argue the priors there now are at this point where we should go, why the fuck would they have to do that? It was so obvious. We never had that for like evolution or anything. We never had that. It was like, it just, the data's there. But I will just end this whole ramble, Rich, by just saying, if you really want to go find some more stuff out there about the Council of Nicaea, there are definitely some great places to go that can give you that information. Off the top of my head right now, I don't know any scholar that like specializes in that I can, pull out of my ass. But there are definitely a good few that could give you some more information on that if you want.
Yeah, and call when Justin Deconstruction Zone is on, because that's their jam. I don't really I like getting into some of the New Testament scholarship stuff. I find that interesting. So I'll go through like little phases of getting like really into it, talking with people about it, and then I kind of bounce around different things to keep it fresh. I don't ever find myself bouncing to that. I mean, I do see people being like bringing up weird things about the Trinity and stuff that seems confused, but yeah, I don't like to talk about it much because I think Secular kind of said it in a really nice way, which is like, this isn't really like why a lot of people, really anybody believes in, like, the Council of Nicaea, I'm a devout Christian now, so I really am interested in the reasons why somebody believes, like just imagine that no one knows anything, they just believe things and they have reasons that they give. Like, okay, if that's the world we live in, I still want to know about the reasons that people have, right? Because they believe things and I want to know why they hold those beliefs. That's all I think, to me, at least in the dialectic of like, why someone believes, that really just offer up the reasons, and then, we could adjudicate whether or not those are good reasons or not. But it seems like today that's been a hard thing for people to want to do.
It can be. It's very tough. I will just say, Rich, real quick, I just looked up. I just tried to do a quick Google search and I didn't find a bunch, but there is a blog on Bart Ehrman's website about the Council of Nicaea, and just having read some of his stuff in the past, he always is providing links and other places to go. So that could be a good jumping off point if you really want to delve further into that. So
Is that good?
So you say Bart Ehrman.
EHRMAN, maybe two N's, but yeah.
He's got some really nice lecture series. There's one that's like on somewhere on Archive. I don't know if I should be saying that at all. So look at the great courses. I don't know if they've changed their name.
Did
well,
you
I don't
just tell
know. I want to. Well, no, because it's on like archive.org somewhere, but I don't want to give like the directions.
Yeah.
I don't know if Dr. Ehrman appreciates that or if that's up there for like. I don't know the nature of why it's there. And
Greg,
so,
cut this whole section out.
Yeah,
cut
exactly.
this whole section out.
I would say, yeah, if it's interesting to you, like there are platforms at which the money you spend is totally worth it. I will say
100%,
that.
100%.
It will be totally worth it.
Yeah. Hopefully that helps, Rich.
Okay, gentlemen, I appreciate it because I just hope I wasn't going down a one-way street the wrong way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I hope I wasn't being bamboozled. And so that's why I call, because I tell you guys, I love the way you guys present stuff. And I used to be, believe me, I went to Catholic school. I even went to Catholic high school for 2 years until I found out there were women. I mean, believe me, I went to good old St. Matt's and things on the Hudson, New York.
That's awesome, Rich.
All right,
well,
guys, thanks an awful lot.
Absolutely. Thank you
course.
so much. I'm gonna drop you like a hot rock, but I'm gonna say thank you again, man. We appreciate you. Yeah,
so it's good to have a nice call like that.
Yeah, and I love the this can be tough for many of us to remember, and I understand why in a lot of ways, but there are so many people out there of all types of backgrounds, all types of ages, all types of places in life. And I had a conversation in person not more than a week ago with somebody who looked me dead in the face. And they said, right, but somebody asked me this once, and I'd never heard this before. What if you're wrong, Elliot? And I went, oh, yeah, that's a fantastic question. There's actually this whole guy named Blaise Pascal who wrote this whole explanation of kind of that question and stuff. And he gives answers, and a bunch of people, and they went, what do you mean? My buddy Bill just asked me that. Who Pascal? What? I'm like, oh yeah. And I
He's
told
actually
them,
really important for like decision theory and
absolutely,
like,
he's incredibly important, huge. Yeah, a lot of we don't ever get to talk about like his mathematical work and stuff.
Yeah, I feel like it
know?
sucks. Like Pascal gets like
I know
fellow atheists out there. Pascal wasn't like a fucking idiot. This dude was really smart, and we implement things that he came up with to this day.
Yes,
so
regularly,
it just wasn't a good argument. Just like Gödel, like Gödel's, I think you pronounce it Gödel.
Yes, it's a weird. Yes.
I've been called out for it, and I'm like, well, that's how I've been told it's pronounced. But even like Gödel's ontological argument, not a successful argument by my lights, but
still brilliant. He's a brilliant guy.
Way smarter than I'll ever be.
Yeah. Super cool. And I just say, like, it's always great to remember that there are those people, and we need to make sure that we're remembering that we were there too. There was a time when neither of us had ever heard onto who's a what's it, I mean, come on. But we have some other really cool calls lining up. So
back to our sidebar just real fast. I realized that it's not my hair here. It's my
mustache.
I didn't do a good job combing, and now it's like curling into my left nostril.
Okay,
I just want to
so it's been like a year or two since I grew out the beard, and like normally I'll grow it out for a little while, and I'll like shave it off for a couple of years or whatever. And so I'm getting back into this phase again. And so it's so different when you've got facial hair and when you don't, because I mean, like there are times when, I wake up and I'll go look in the mirror and I've just got like this going on, with some of my hairs, and I'm like, oh yeah, just grab a brush. Nothing. Grab a little beard oil or something. Fucking nothing. It just will not.
Beards suck.
Oh my god, so strange. But thank goodness nobody was hearing that, and our wonderful crew put us in our little sidebar.
Yes. We go back to the show.
That's right. Hey everybody, we're back. I don't think there's a single person that laughed at that. I enjoy it. I think it's hilarious.
But that's why, like, I always tell everyone, like, when we went to Austin, like, I had such a blast, and I'm looking forward to it because we are just so stupid.
Yes, we have such a good time.
Yeah.
It's so fun. Oh, well, we are going to go to Pennsylvania. We've got a theist watcher, 215, he, him pronouns, is answering our chat poll question. So that's great. Well, great, watcher. You are on the Atheist Experience with Secular Rarity and JMike. What have you got for us?
Watcher
JMike,
215.
SR. Good evening, gentlemen. It's good to speak with you.
Yeah, what's up?
So, yeah, I'm answering the question on the poll. So I would say life, love, and goodness. Life, the natural life as well as the eternal life would be like really 4 reasons that I believe in God, and they're all evidence for God for me.
How is let's pick one of those.
How do you prove life exists? No, I'm just kidding. Sorry.
no. We're not gonna go that silly with the watcher. No, let's go to love. Like, how does love prove that the particular God that you believe in exists? What is it about love that gets us to that conclusion?
Well, the scriptures that I believe in says God is love, and when I experience love, therefore I'm experiencing God.
But you wouldn't accept if I had scriptures that said my God, not watcher's God, is love, and I experience love, therefore my God, not watcher's God exists, right? You wouldn't accept that, right?
I'm not sure I understand what you're saying. Maybe.
Okay, totally fine. Here,
I'm
let me
slow.
help.
I'm old and slow.
No. That's okay. Let me help you out here. I just happen to have this book real close to me here. It's The Bible Says So. It's Dan McClellan's new book. It literally just happens to be right next to me. But
Nice.
Let's say somewhere in this book it explicitly says, SR, your God that you believe in is love, and it's not watcher's God. And because you experience love, your God's real and not watchers. When I say all that to you, do you accept that? Do you now not believe in your God?
No, I have to understand what the author is meaning by what they're saying. We'd have to have more discussion.
Do you though? I mean, do you though? Do you really have to know anything more than just what has been presented? Because on its face, the argument is so bad that instantly you recognized, hey, something's wrong here, man. That sounds fucked up. I don't know what it is yet, but something about that sounds weird. And you're right. It's because the same reason that you wouldn't accept that claim from me is the same reason that I can't accept the claim from you. And if we're gonna be consistent, neither of us should accept either claim.
Well, let me ask you a question, SR. Do you experience love in your life?
Totally.
Well, I mean, we experience love. It's fine.
Do you deny that experience?
Well,
No,
hold on. I'm sorry. I'm a little confused because, like, the love thing, I'm weirded out by. Like, do you like hold like 1 Corinthians 13:4 to be true? Like, love is patient, love is kind, love does not envy, love does not boast, love is not proud.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So, love
all
is
of
patient.
that. Yeah, I embrace all of it.
Right. All right. Love is kind. Do you think it's kind to murder like innocent infant children?
Absolutely not.
Okay, great. Let's go.
Why God do it?
We'll come back to that. We'll come back to that. All right.
What about jealousy?
Love is well, yeah. We can go with that one. Yeah, let's go with that. I mean, we can pick through all of these.
Yeah. No, you keep going. You got a good one.
Well, let's start with the 2. Love is not proud, right? So it doesn't have this inflated self-importance notion going on, right?
Right.
Yeah. God. Okay, so let's stick with those 2. God slaughters Amalekite children in 1 Samuel 15:3, and then on the second point, he is saying, like, just read the first commandment. There shall be no other gods before me. So far, like, if you think God is love, like, if you hold that in conjunction with these things, you do? Well, I can just render an argument to you for, like, I mean, I'd have to formalize it or something, but it's just going to be the case that if God is, like, love, and it turns out that love doesn't do these things, like, it doesn't envy, it's not, or, you know, it's always kind. It isn't the case that it's not proud, right? Stuff like that. And then we show that God does those things. Then God isn't loved by your own notion of love, by your own lights, right? So I could just provide some type of internal critique on your own view.
Would you be right in your argument though? That's the question.
Yes, based on your criteria.
Yeah,
That's what he's saying, Watcher.
You can give me a minute and I'll formalize it right now.
Hold on.
Yeah, hold up, Watcher, real quick. Real quick.
What I'm asking,
hang on just a second. I'm just going to mute you for a second. I know there's a bit of a delay, and I know you're not trying to talk over us. We're not.
Hold on to that thought, because I want to know what you say. But
hold on to that, okay? But what JMike was just saying there, just because you asked, would you be right with that argument? What JMike was just saying there was, if you accept this definition of love, and you accept that God did these things based on the book that talks about God, then by your own criteria, God cannot be equivalent to love.
Exactly.
Because he does the things that are absolutely contradictory to it. And so by that, I mean, yeah, 100%, JMike's right. If one of the definitions of love is that it is not proud, and God says, I am a boastful, jealous God, I am proud, that is contrary to what it means to be loved by your definition.
I already have a formally valid argument in my head. So you could run it like this. You could run premise one. If it's the case that God is love, then that love is embodied in 1 Corinthians 13:4. It is not the case that love is embodied or imbued in 1 Corinthians 13:4. Conclusion, therefore, God is not love. Right. And that's just going to be a valid modus tollens argument. It's going to be if P, then Q, not Q, therefore not P.
So I'm going to bring you back in, Watcher. I know we've said a lot. We're going to give you a minute. You're going to hear a beep, and then you are going to be back on. So go ahead, Watcher.
And it seemed like you accepted all those premises, like you accepted you seem like you'd have to accept the conditional, and you'd have to accept, well, I guess the contentious premise is whether or not you think that it's true or not that God embodies those. But it seems like you agreed with me that slaughtering a Amalekite or any innocent child is not the embodiment of love. So your only move there is to say that they weren't innocent. Does it make sense so far?
I was explicitly challenging. I think I'm hearing everything you're saying and understanding it, but what I was challenging was your argument itself. In other words, the premise. I do not agree with the premise that you're putting forth.
Which premise? The premise that it's not the case that.
Which is the crux of your argument. In other words.
Well, yeah, I'm just trying to hold on.
The conclusion that you're coming to, I don't agree. I don't.
Yeah,
agree.
yeah.
Well, hold on. That's different because look, you are rationally committed to the conclusion if you accept the premises. So if you're just like, yeah, I accept what you're saying in the premises, but I deny your conclusion. Well, it's a formally valid argument. So if you accept A, B, and C, you're committed to D, right? That's like, there's no question about that. By the axioms of classical logic, right, and by the rules of propositional logic, you are rationally committed to the conclusion.
You're disagreeing.
Presumably, you're disagreeing with premise two.
With the premise, so I can't affirm.
Okay, Watcher. Which premise?
Huh?
Which premise?
Go ahead and state them so that we can.
If God is love, then yeah. Presumably, it's not this premise, right? Premise one. If God is love, then that love is imbued in 1 Corinthians 13:4, right? You presumably accept that because you think all the scripture is true. Or I'm just taking things that you said. Corinthians 13:4 is part of the scripture. It talks about love. God is love. You accept the antecedent, which is if God is love, and you accept the consequent, right? Those things are true. This whole conditional statement is true to you.
Are you with us so far, Watcher? Do you accept that premise that JMike just laid out?
That if God is
love,
in other words,
God is love is the first. God is.
That's not.
let me see if I'm understanding you correctly. The
Sure.
first premise is God is love. The second premise is that's
No.
in line with
No.
First Corinthians.
The first premise is a condition.
legislation,
The first
blah,
premise
blah,
is a
blah,
conditional.
right?
No, the
I'm
first
wrong?
premise is yeah, that's wrong. The first premise is a conditional statement. If then, right? It's like an if then statement, right? So that's one premise. If God is love, comma, then it's the case that love is imbued in First Corinthians, or that love is imbued in Corinthians 13:4, right? And then the second premise is it's not the case that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, so you agree with the first one. Good. I thought we would. Now, the second one is exactly where JMike was going into, which I think is where you have the problem.
That's what the contentious premise would be
I
if
think
anyone
so.
was to have one. Yeah.
Okay, so what is that one, JMike? And then Watcher will talk about why you disagree with this.
Yeah, it's just so you're just negating the consequence. So you're it's not the case that that love is embodied in Corinthians 13:4, right? So that the love that you say God imbues, right? Because you agreed with me that what is not love, right? What's supporting the premise is that you agreed with me that love, which is what God is not something that would be compatible with slaughtering infants, innocent infants, right? But in the scripture, God slaughters those infants, and so it couldn't possibly imbue that love. And I'm tripping up on the verse, 1 Corinthians 13:4, I believe. We'll just say Corinthians for right now. Just make it easier so I don't keep stumbling.
Yeah.
And so if that's the case, right, then you're going to end up agreeing with that premise. Now, the way that you could get out of this is by saying, well, look, I agree with you that killing innocent infants is wrong, but that's not what God was doing there, right? And then now I'd just be curious on how it's not, what's the symmetry breaker between the Amalekite infants being innocent versus any other infant, right? What makes a baby not innocent? Because I can't for the life of me understand that. That might not be your position, but that's the only way I can see you trying to get out of it. So
if I may, real quick, Watcher, I'm going to give the TLDR as best I can.
That'd be great, because I'm constructing an argument in real time.
No, you're doing great. No, it's great.
Yeah.
No, it's great. You're coming with this shit up on the fly. People don't realize how tough that is. But so what JMike is saying, we've already agreed that God would have the properties exhibited in the Corinthians verse. And what JMike is saying is that, in fact, based on the same book, God clearly demonstrates properties contrary to those listed in Corinthians. Therefore, God can't be love. What about that do you disagree with?
When we're born into this world, we're already under the sentence of death. So any life that we receive is actually the mercy of God being demonstrated.
But it doesn't matter about mercy. It doesn't matter about that. Now, we could talk about how God setting up that whole system to begin with doesn't adhere to the criteria of love listed in Corinthians, but we don't even need to go there, Watcher, because instead of responding directly to the fact that, hey, look, we finally have this criteria of what it means to be love, and we see that not being exhibited by the character of God. That in and of itself should demonstrate that God cannot be equivalent to this conception. Maybe a different conception of love, but not this one. Is that fair?
That's why life is a demonstration not only of
we can
God,
move
but
on.
also
We
of
can
His
move on
mercy.
to anything else in
fact
just
that
a
we
second,
have life
Watcher, but we
already.
have to drop this one. We can move on to life. We can move on to goodness, because I think those are fascinating reasons that you've given as well. But we chose love first. And it seems like after going back and forth, after us really trying to wrestle with this concept, you've got to let that one go. And I just want to know, are you going to drop that one? Can we move on to life? No longer can love be one of these examples.
No, love is. I would never let go of love. That's the center of my faith.
Letting go of love as a
no way I would
reason
let
to
go of that.
believe in God is what I'm saying, Watcher. You presented love as a reason to believe in God, but by your own criteria, that can't be true, because the character of God that you believe exists demonstrably exhibits the exact opposite behavior of what love would. You have to let it go as a reason to believe in God. Life may be one, but it can't be this.
Well, I just disagree with you, SR. Simple as that.
That's okay. You can,
not been
but I
my
hope that
experience.
you'll watch this back, because all of the information that you've given us today, you also agree is incorrect. And that's all JMike and I have done. We've just said the words back to you and just said, okay, well, if that's what you believe, then this is the outcome. And you said, yeah, that's right. And we said, right. So you can't believe that anymore, you know? But do you want to move on to goodness or life, JMike? We've got a couple of other calls, but do you want to move on to one more before we let Watcher go?
Well, the goodness will be kind of captured by the argument that I'm running, because like love is going to be this kind of normative notion of like, it's going to be like this notion about like what should be done or whatever. And I think the good, I mean, obviously not the same thing, but I could just run like a parallel kind of argument to it, talking about the goodness and just being like, do you think that these things are good? Right. So I don't know. I mean, maybe we move on to the last thing, but I did want to ask, like, because I'm trying to do this to ask just to support my own premise here, because I'm anticipating that he's going to reject P2 for this reason, but I'm just interested. I want to kind of get it archived on the internet forever. So do you think that there's any case where slaughtering an infant like is justifiable?
No.
Okay. Do you agree that God slaughtered or commanded? Well, let's do it. Let's be as charitable as we can. Do you think that anyone commanding the slaughtering of infant children, infants, do you think that that is justifiable for any reason? Like there's any situation
no again, but I'll also add that we're in a context that we must recognize, which is the judgment of God.
Well, I was asking for, is there any context where there's that? And then
any life.
But I asked for if the whole point of me asking was, is there any context where that's justifiable? And then you're like, we got to see it from this context. So you did this thing where you were like, I agree with you, but also I don't agree with you. Right? That's what happened there. So just straightforwardly.
Okay, I did. I'll admit that. JMike,
Okay.
so can I try
Yeah,
again?
I'm not trying to do that to rag on you. I just want to understand your position. That's all.
Yeah.
I just don't want to be confused.
Yeah,
Yeah. So which one is it?
All
just
right.
so I don't like straw
to
man.
get better the better understanding is this. Okay, I guess I'm changing my answer then. My answer is yes. The justification is under the judgment of God, in which we are under.
Okay.
No
well,
other context. But just to be clear, Watcher, no other context works. It's a no everywhere else except for this one case. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
I think that's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone wants to use this, like, you can just use this argument on people to see if, like, because if they reject that premise, what they're going to have to do is make this appalling move, where they'll have to justify the commanding of infants, right? And you can just kind of get it out of them that way. But if anyone wants to steal that, go ahead. Because, like, I was hoping that, like, for your own sake, you know, like, if you want to be internal, for your own sake, you say no. But if what you want to do is be internally consistent, then, like, yeah, you can make that move. But this argument highlights to show that, well, what you can't do is hold love above my head as if it's anything I should really give a shit about. Because it turns out what's baked into your concept of love is commanding to slaughter infants, and I just don't possess that concept of love, my man. Yeah. I just don't.
Yeah, that is never part of any conception of goodness, morality, love, any of that. And I think, you know, we could make the we could make the argument that it undercuts the life example you've given. But I just real quick, Watcher, wanna go back to this moment. Right. I just want to real quick though go back to this moment where JMike asked you this question and he said, "Hey, look, is there any context whatsoever that this thing works?" And you went, "Well, yeah, there is this one and only this one. And in every other context, it absolutely cannot work. It fundamentally is impossible." There's this thing called special pleading. That's a really important understanding about how we construct arguments, right? And what information is more likely to lead us to reliably true outcomes. And if in the process of our argument, we have to do that exact thing, which is in every other context, this isn't right. And not only isn't, but it can't be right, except for mine. That's a problem. That's a poorly constructed argument. And you have to fix that part of it. It doesn't mean that your outcome is necessarily untrue, but it does mean that we definitely can't accept it just yet. And I think that would be something that would be helpful. I think you can construct a better argument in this case. I have heard some of them, but I would also argue the vast majority of those Christians that make a better argument about love being an example of God's existence and so forth, they don't believe in a hell. They don't believe in a literal 6-day creation. They sure don't believe the earth is under 10,000 years old. And they definitely don't believe that LGBTQ people should be criminalized for who they are. So it just, this wasn't a perfect argument, Watcher.
I do want to point out something I think is the most important. I don't want it to go missing. Watcher, I want you to be able to speak, but I want you, like, if you watch this back at all, I don't want you to force you to watch something back. I don't like watching myself back, so I don't really do it. But so I get it. But I want you to notice something that happened in this call, and which was when I asked you about that premise and whether or not you would reject that. And I was trying to be charitable and make sure I wasn't strawmanning you, so talked about the commanding of slaughtering infants. You did this move where you said, well, yeah, I guess I would have to say that that's justifiable. And I think that's important. I'm not a psychologist or anything like that, but I think the psychological component's like very key to these discussions. It's like kind of this mirage of the philosophical stuff and whatnot that goes above it. But really, like, it sounded like it was like, well, in real time, you were thinking, I could be wrong, but it seemed like you were thinking something like, well, shit, if I go this way, then I accept this argument, and then God is not love. And that's an undercutting defeater for my argument. So I'm forced to say this. Now, let's not worry about the psychological thing at the moment, but let's just notice what's happening, that when you're faced with something that I don't think you really probably believe. I could be wrong. I don't know you. It's hard for me to believe that you really think that there's times where it's okay to justify to kill infants. It feels like you made that out of like a response move because you know that this would undercut your position. But then ask yourself internally, am I being honest with myself? Right? I'm just accepting some proposition because I have to, right? And that, I don't know, I just feel like that should be looked at inward a little bit more.
For sure.
But that's just my takeaway. And I could just be full of shit, and you can think I'm totally full of shit or whatever. I'm just giving you my opinion of what I'm noticing, and that's all. You sound like you'd be a good person to talk to about this, or like, you seem like you listen and respond. So I appreciate that, but it's hard for me to believe you really believe that, and you aren't just doing that to kind of save the argument that you have.
What do you think, Watcher?
Thank you, JMike. Thank you, SR. It was really good talking to you. I want to respond by saying the special pleading that often comes up in a lot of these discussions on this platform directly correlates to the truth in the scriptures of the holiness or the set apartness of God. In other words, his holiness means that's what, when we bring up things of his holiness,
sure,
what immediately comes to the mind of most people is that's special pleading, which it is. In fact, it is special pleading. but the special pleading is justified. It's called holiness.
Fallacious,
brother,
fallacious
hold up,
reasoning
hold
isn't
up,
justified.
hold up, JMike, hold up, because I know you want to get on that, but that
Oh,
sounds like a perfect freaking call to have in the future, Watcher. That sounds like an awesome call for us to have in the future and hash out. So thank you so much for calling us back today, and JMike and I will be looking forward to getting to chat with you about that in the future.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you go, Watcher.
I was like a dog on a chain. You pulled.
No, I had to. We've got other calls. We've got other calls. We've been going for like 20 minutes with Watcher.
No, it's cool.
Great,
I mean,
though.
it's good. I actually have a kind of a cutoff today at 7 anyways. This is perfect for me. I gotta make a run, and I give maybe Scott. I don't know how much time you have. I think
we got Mr. Scott Dickey behind us. We'll bring him on.
Yeah, apologies to any callers if they wanted to specifically ask me anything. I anticipate that's the case, so hopefully that's not the case. But I'll get out before I say the case any more times than I need to. There's already Christian books that do that a lot that we're all familiar with. So
it is absolutely always a great time getting to hang out with you. You always have a wonderful perspective. I can't wait to be down in Austin, Texas with you in a month.
I know,
man.
me too. I'm so excited. I am so excited. I really am. I hope I messaged you the other day, and I hope I mean everything of what I told you.
Absolutely, man. Same here.
Sweet.
Same here, brother.
Awesome.
And you in the audience will not get to hear what that DM was, but it was hot and spicy. No, I'm kidding. Get out of here. Get out of here, man. Thank you so much, brother.
You guys.
Well, we have a couple of other calls we are going to grab here, but before we do that, the amazing crew, the always incredible, the closest thing we know to a real live deity, the crew here at the ACA, they are going to bring up our backup host, the wonderful Mr. Scott Dickey has been here hanging out with us, and I think he might be ready. I don't know just yet. But you know what? We're just gonna poke him in the ribs and wake him up. So, is he up here? I just see my dumb face still. There he is. What's up?
I'm here.
Hey, it's great to see you, man.
I can't really quite fill the beard, but I'll do my best.
No, this has been great. There's been a lot of hair today, and that's what we want here on the ACA. We're big about facial hair. Actually,
You've heard about hair bands.
Right.
This is a hair show.
That's a hair show. Yeah, a hair show.
Exactly.
Wasn't there a musical that was just named Hair? Isn't that a thing? Am I just wrong on that?
Yeah.
Anyway,
we were just watching it, actually.
That's right. We have some other calls. We are going to go to California. Lord is an atheist, and he, him pronouns, wants to talk about a logical moral framework. Well, hey, Lord, you are on the Atheist Experience with Scott Dickey and Circularity. What is up?
Hi there. It's so good to finally talk to you guys.
Yeah.
Hey, Lord.
Great to talk to you.
Hi there. Hey there. So I was working on this secular moral framework that I'm calling compression logic. And I wanted to bring it to you guys to see if it's not, just my own echo chamber telling me it works.
We'll do the best we can. Give us some
it
stuff.
Basically, so the definition of compression logic is a system that ethically removes contradictions from structures, which is religion, economic, governments, relationships, everything. It forces you to critically look at contradictions and make them align with your intentions or remove them.
Okay.
All right. You've piqued my interest.
Yeah, I don't currently see any
and
problems.
Yeah, and so the moral aspect of it is that you have to consider suffering. Does the system reduce suffering? Recognition, does it recognize all variables involved?
Okay.
Existence, does it preserve existence or remove it? And mobility, is it able to grow, learn, change, or evolve?
Sure. So let me jump in real quick, because I'll just start off by saying, so far from what I've heard, there's a lot of this that I'm a fan of. I kind of feel like I get the intention, and I kind of feel like I get, where the logical conclusions might lead to. And I'm already kind of on board, right? But the first thing that jumps out to me is, from the moral realist side, which are the individuals out there who believe that there are actual like moral facts out there, just like there is, answers to the question 2 + 2. Like there is an answer to it, and all the other answers are wrong. Those people would probably jump in and say, "Well, hey, Lord, why would I care about suffering? Why would I actually care about recognition or mobility?
Why would
Like,
you
what's
care
the
about
what's the
suffering?
basis of that?" Yeah.
Exactly, because when systems contain contradictions, they experience collapse.
Okay.
And so when any of these moral bases are violated, collapse is inevitable.
So are you saying that if a moral
So if you have a
framework
system, for
includes
example,
suffering,
that
then it would be contradictory? What I'm not really following you there.
Yeah.
How is that an example of a
So
contradiction?
what I'm saying is, if you have a moral system that increases suffering, if you have a system that increases suffering over time, it'll experience collapse.
I don't know. What do
The
you
goal
mean
is
by
to
that?
reduce suffering or mitigate it. You can't eliminate it.
Right.
What do
but
I mean
why-
by that? So, like,
Yeah.
for example, I mean, if we're talking about like religions, right, where religions ask you to love one another, and worship God and things like that, and you find out the religion continuously, it encourages hateful actions against marginalized groups and things like that, then you can already tell that this type of religion will not last in its current form. It must change or be destroyed.
And why is that?
Yeah. What justification do we have for that?
Because of collapse.
Collapse is what you
because
said
we've
was
seen
the
that all
outcome,
systems
but
that
we're
contain
asking is
contradictions
what
eventually collapse.
Like what? Like name a system that has a contradiction that has collapsed. Would you say Hinduism has collapsed?
I would say, like, I haven't studied Hinduism enough to know that if it has reformed, but I would say, like, Protestantism in America has certainly reformed to avoid collapse.
Right, but so what we need an example of a system that definitively has contradictions in it that all three of us agree are contradictions, and then the definitive example of the collapse of that system. Because right now, one of the things that I think Scott and I are both we're kind of bristling. Okay, go ahead.
So I see what you're saying. So we can take like American Revolution, for example, where Americans under British rule were not getting fair representation, for taxes and things like that. And they were getting abused by the colonial system. And so the collapse was the revolution. And America restructured into, the United States that we have today, the colonies, 13 colonies. Right.
What
so the
collapsed
British rule
in that
America
system?
collapsed because of its contradictions.
What collapsed though? Are you just talking about
the authority of the British in America?
I mean, I guess.
Oh, sorry. I mean, the authority of the British rule in their system. Yeah.
And what was the contradiction?
Like, I can try and break it down even simpler.
Yeah.
Well, the contradiction is that they were promised to have representation.
Okay. And they weren't getting it. Okay. What break it down a little simpler for us.
When they did not receive representation. Yeah, let me break it down. Let's go down simple like to a lie. Like, imagine that you lied to your friend about why you didn't want to go see him that day. And he finds out that you have lied to him. Now your system is going to collapse because in order for you to maintain the friendship, you must address the lie or not be friends anymore.
So are you saying that a contradiction really is just a failed promise?
Yeah, it's a violation of any social contract. It's a violation of intention and action.
Okay, so you make a commitment to do something, to honor representation or something along the or to decrease suffering or something like that. And then if there's no follow through on that, then you're calling that a contradiction?
It's a contradiction. Yeah.
So basically, you're saying that systems that lie
When
to
you say
people
it appears
will eventually
self-evident-
be caught and discarded.
Exactly, or reformed.
Okay.
So, are you familiar with
Yeah. See,
Emmanuel?
because I don't
hang on
do,
just a
like-
second. I know there's a bit of delay. I know you weren't trying to interrupt or anything. Don't worry. It's the audio stuff, not the tech people, by the way. It's literally just the machines themselves. Our tech crew is fucking amazing. I'm only saying that so they don't yell at me this time. Anyway, So are you familiar, Lord? Are you familiar with the categorical imperative that Immanuel Kant talked about?
I personally haven't studied any of Kant's writings.
Okay.
I've heard a lot discussed on this show. But I was wondering if it could be similar enough that my framework could just discard it.
Well, but potentially, I don't know yet, but there were some things when you were talking about the lie there, that definitely, brought me back to young little SR sitting around kicking his feet as he gleefully reads Immanuel Kant's musings. There is some really good stuff in there. It's called the categorical imperative. That's the concept I think you'll want to kind of try and look into, and maybe even all the way back to Plato and the noble lie. Don't worry about like writing those down or anything. This will be recorded. You can go back and check all that shit. But one of the things I definitely want to offer you to read if you do decide to go look more into Kant, is look up the personal letters that he sent with a woman named Maria von Herbert. And you can literally find them just by searching her name, Maria von Herbert, Kant letters. Because this is an individual that studied Kant so profusely that she was willing to completely destroy her own life to follow through on the axioms that he presented. And I think it's a really fascinating moment where you can see kind of some of the problems of this type of categorical imperative, how that would play out in the tangible world around us, right? Now, there is also some really good explanation of how Kant gets to these things too. But I think that might help flesh this out a little bit. And maybe even, and again, I know I'm throwing a shit ton at you. It's great because you'll just be able to pause the video and just be like, what the fuck was that? Constructivism is another really fascinating moral concept here that might be beneficial for you. It talks more about how morality is this thing that we construct, right? It's not really a thing that's out there, definitely not in the same sense as like hydrogen atoms, and not even really in the same sense as like math or love, right? Morality is even more of this constructed thing. And there's a lot of really cool people that talk about how we would construct that or why we would construct that a certain way. All of that stuff might help kind of shoring up a lot of these different places in your theory that you're working on. I would say there's still also some issues with constructivism too, and the more that you dive into this realm, the deeper you get. Lord, I promise you, it'll get fucking frustrating after a moment. So make sure that you take a little bit of time and you put the book down every so often and you come back to it and go, okay, what was he trying to say? What's Derek Parfit trying to tell me here? But anyway, I hope some of that rambling was a resource or two for you.
Oh yeah, no, that's great. I had vaguely looked at some stuff on Kant, and so I didn't really absorb a lot of his ideas and stuff like that. I was just more afraid that somebody else already thought of this and that my framework is irrelevant.
Yeah, and it might be. I don't know just yet, but one of the things that I would say that comes up to me right away is the conversation that's been going on for a very long time between moral realists and moral anti-realists. And again, that's that distinction between those people that say like, no, there actually are moral laws and facts out there. And then there's these other people, and they're broken up into a lot of different camps, by the way. There's this whole group of people that have been studying this stuff for a really long time. And their view is that really at the end of the day, morality is basically just us saying like, yay, we like that thing, or boo, we don't like that thing. And emotivism is a really interesting concept, you know? I also think there's a little bit of flaws there. I don't think we have the perfect moral framework just yet, but I do think if we're being honest, when we do this investigation, we come to a much more humble place about what is good or bad, about why we would choose certain actions, how we justify various actions. And you tend to, not always, but you tend to be a little bit more charitable and willing to listen to the other side. And, you know, that's been my experience seeing people go down this route. And honestly, I think you're going down the exact right path, Lord. Keep having these thoughts, write them out, change this, change that, bring it to somebody, let them take a look at it, change them again, go out, read some Kant, go out, read some Mills, go look into all of this and keep formulating this and don't stop, you know. I want to pass it back over to Scott because I know I've been rambling a bunch. But
yeah, I was going to say my back is a little sore from carrying the show, so so I'm glad. It's about time you pick up the slack there, SR. No, Lord, I might be missing something here, but I just wanted to dive a little bit into what you were saying. So you're suggesting that moral framework will fail if it doesn't live up to its commitments and promises, and that's fine. I think that's pretty obvious. You also said that you were worried that maybe somebody else had thought of this. What is the unique spin that you're bringing to the table here? Are you suggesting that that people don't worry about that now, or that current perspectives on morality don't include that?
Well, I was mainly thinking like the point of this compression logic is to avoid collapse. Not that like collapse itself is evil. It's just what happens when systems contain contradictions.
Okay.
And
so as long as somebody follows through with what they suggest,
place that properly. Yeah.
Sorry, you finish. You finish. I interrupted you.
That is if you follow through and your intentions are aligned. No, it's okay. If you follow through and your intentions are aligned and it includes genocide, then it's not moral. Right? You need a system.
But what if you promise genocide and then followed through with it? Or what if you promise to bring in suffering and then follow through with that? I mean, that would avoid this contradiction that you're talking about, and therefore this collapse.
Repeat that again, Scott.
I'm just saying, if you have a moral framework that promises genocide and then does commit genocide, I mean, we could, of course, I think we would agree that that's a bad thing and that's an immoral thing, but that's not what your framework is describing at this point. You're at, if we're just looking at this idea of these contradictions, if you promise something, if you promise to, I will bring suffering upon you, and then you do that, then that's not a contradiction, correct?
Yeah, exactly. And so what I'm saying is that suffering must be reduced. That's what makes it moral. People must be recognized. Mobility must be allowed. And so when you have a system that says we will commit genocide and they fall through on the genocide, it's still immoral because the people they genocided were not recognized and they were experiencing increased suffering.
So you're saying that morality is if it's okay to have a contradiction as long as you're not committing suffering, which I agree with you. I agree that encouraging suffering is immoral.
No.
But the way you're describing your scenario here, right, you're kind of slipping that in there.
Well, I'm saying that if you have a system that contains genocide and wants to be moral, then you have to remove the genocide.
So what do you mean by moral then? Sorry,
Right.
SR.
You
What
can't
last question,
deny the
and then I'll shut up.
recognition.
What do you mean by moral?
Yeah, so I'm talking about like what I'm calling the four moral bases, which is suffering, existence, recognition, and mobility. If a system violates these four things, then collapse is inevitable. So if a system increases suffering, denies recognition, eliminates existence, and denies mobility, then the people in that system will collapse. The whole system, the ideology will collapse. And so what I'm proposing is collapse avoidance, which is giving people recognition, preventing suffering or mitigating it, right? That's what begins to make the system moral. And it starts with contradiction removal. So you can't do genocide because you're going to remove people's recognition, mobility, cause suffering and existence.
Sounds a lot like humanism to me.
Yeah, I would say there is definitely a good overlap there. But one question, and I know it might sound stupid. I know it kind of does. But truly, I mean, Lord, why would we care about minimizing suffering? I mean, really, what's the reason?
Why?
What's the purpose?
Well, the reason is just collapse avoidance or mitigation.
Okay.
You have to choose to want to avoid collapse.
Okay, so hang on. So let's
not evil.
Yeah, let's take this. Let's take that, okay? Collapse avoidance. That is a terminology there that I would need more information about. Because currently, if somebody comes up to me and says, "Hey, SR, you want to minimize that suffering so that you avoid collapse," I would say, what? Do you mean like collapse of the human race? Do you mean like somebody looks like a hypocrite on live TV? Do you mean that I instantaneously Thanos snap out of existence? What does that mean?
No, I'm so sorry. When I talk about collapse, it is the point in which a system fails, whether that's a social contract between friends or authority of a government or the legitimacy of a religion.
I'm on board.
At the point when a system fails, the collapse is when the contradiction in it is no longer ignorable.
Okay, so give me an example in history, any one example where that happened, where collapse happened as you're describing it.
Well, where collapse happened, I mean, like, we can talk about the Roman Empire and how these guys are fighting between.
Yeah, let's talk about the Roman Empire. Did the Roman Empire collapse?
Each other until they were nothing.
Did the Roman Empire collapse and disappear, or did it get split into the Holy Roman Empire and the Byzantine Empire?
Well, the original concept had collapsed, and after it collapsed, it had to restructure or be erased, and we saw a restructure.
Maybe so. But how do we know? How do we know that there is a through line from this specific concept? We can talk about recognition and mobility and all those other things, but how do we know that the suffering is what caused the supposed collapse of the Roman Empire, which again, I'm not even granting yet. I don't think there was a collapse of the Roman Empire in the way that you're talking about it. I think there was a reformation, a restructuring, which is fine. But maybe instead of using the word collapse avoidance, maybe you just change that terminology, you know?
Yeah, like I would say the Roman Empire that we saw before it had split and then dissolved, right, ceased to exist.
Sure.
Then it began to restructure into these two, like, you know, the Eastern Roman Empire and the Catholic Roman Empire. And as the contradictions in those empires continued, we saw the legitimacy of their authority decrease and decrease and decrease until we get to the Dark Ages.
Sure. But we're mixing up two different things here that I think are very important for us to hang on just a second. We're mixing up two very different things here that I think it's important for us to make sure we keep separate. We're going back and forth between talking about things in a conceptual sense and talking about things in a tangible physical sense. right? As a concept, the Roman Empire may have collapsed in various understandings of what the word collapse mean. Like Italy's still fucking there. You know, those buildings are still there, right? That didn't disappear. It wasn't as if on Monday we had Roman citizens and then on Tuesday we had fuck all who knows what's, you know, right? So the reason that I'm kind of poking at this just a little bit.
Italian citizens now, not Roman citizens.
Sure, we do have Italian citizens, but we also have Roman citizens because Rome is still very much a city in the country of Italy. I mean, so the reason that I'm kind of poking at this, and it may seem, you know, really picky and really, you know, really pedantic and whatnot, but it's because in these types of constructions, in these type of philosophical discussions, we have to be as precise as possible with our language, right? And if we're going back and forth and we're discussing tangible collapse, right, of like an empire, or, you know, it might be fair to say that the government of Ethiopia a good handful of years ago collapsed. That might be a fair statement. It might be a fair statement to say a buddy of mine's shed in his backyard collapsed. You know, what does it mean to say that a philosophical concept collapsed? What does it mean to say utilitarianism collapsed, you know, or Islamic theology collapsed, you know? And the only reason I'm being picky is because I think if you make this language a bit more precise, I think you will have a more sound system on your hand. And I know I was rambling a lot, so I'm going to give you a minute to respond to that, Lord.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I'm still working on like words and definitions and trying to get this thing nailed down, right? But like the main point I'm trying to say is like the collapse is when you don't believe the system anymore, right? When you look at the contradictions in Islam and you can't keep believing it, or you have some sort of utilitarian philosophy imposed, but you see people are not doing better and you can't believe in that system anymore. That's the collapse. It's when you break up with your girlfriend because you can't trust her.
Okay, so I think that would be okay. So I'm sorry to jump in, but I think that might be a worthwhile thing going forward, is to explicitly state what you're just when you're using the word collapse in this moral construction, you are explicitly referencing the individual now being incapable of holding true this ideology because of various contradictions or problems with it, right? Like that might be, in my opinion, a worthwhile thing to make sure it's out there. I might have some pushback. I might, but we've already been going for a good while, and I think you're on the right path for sure. So, Scott, is there anything else you wanted to say before we kind of wrap this up real quick?
Lord, I think I what you're saying sounds pretty good to me. I mean, it and I feel like I'm missing something here. I feel like I'm missing some kind of connection here, because what you're describing to me seems in a nutshell like you're saying if you respect people and you treat them like human beings, then they'll agree with you, or they'll go along with you, or they won't reject you. And I feel like that's a pretty common conception out there. And I agree with SR. I think that your use of the terminology is a little bit different than what I'm used to. I feel like there's an interesting perspective in there that I'm just not connecting with. And so you've stimulated some interesting thoughts in my head. And I like the way that you're taking things. If there is something that something new that you're bringing to the table, I wish I could understand that more, but I'm just not connecting with it, if that makes sense.
Hey, that's fine. Like, you know, all that stuff, it's feedback. And I need to find what I'm not explaining to you properly. Because if I am bringing something new and worthwhile to the table, it needs to be properly defined. And so this is why I call you guys.
Do you think that I was kind of on point? Do you think that the way I was describing your philosophy here, do you think that was a reasonable explanation, or do you think I was missing the boat there?
Well, I would say the only thing that I would add to what you said is that when you're doing compression logic, which is what I'm calling it for now, you have to take your system and look at its contradictions and remove them. Then you can behave morally after that. It is a critical look at what you're doing, your systems, your intentions, your beliefs. And then after that, after you remove or restructure them, you can move forward and do what you're supposed to fucking do.
Yeah, if I understand the rest of it correctly, then I think I agree with what you just said there.
Right, and what I'm proposing is a way to do it without kind of just hemming and hawing and just thinking about it. I'm thinking that there's a way that you can objectively look at contradictions and morally remove them, so we're not committing genocide.
Well, again, Lord, I think this is a very great path to be on. And I think, like I said from the beginning, broadly speaking, I think I kind of get, you know, the overall picture of what you're going for here. And I gotta say, I kind of like it, you know? That being said, I definitely think looking into some constructivist type of stuff with like John Rawls, you know, some stuff from like Immanuel Kant and the categorical imperative, and then some newer stuff too, like Derek Parfit. Like he's not terribly far back in the philosophy you know, timeline, which is great because he's talking about some things that are really, really tangible and prevalent today that, you know, people like Descartes or Rousseau never could have come up with. But yeah, I think broadly speaking, Scott and I are like, yeah, this sounds like a cool little venture, and we'd love to see how it evolves and continues to get shored up. I do think already one of the problems you will find going forward is connecting back to the reasoning behind why you have said suffering, mobility, recognition, why those things are the important things and not the infinite other options. I will go ahead and give you a quick cheat on that, though. You could just take the stance that it doesn't matter. You could just say, hey, it could be anything else, but it is these, fuck it, and we move on. That actually is acceptable. So, but I'm going to drop you like a hot rock here, Lord, because we are at the end of the show. Thank you so freaking much for giving us a call. And I hope we get to call you, talk to you in the future. So thank you so much, Lord. And that's it, man. We got an empty queue and I've got an empty belly. Right. So I know we are going to get out of here quick before too long. Hey, you go hang out on the nonprofits, don't you? Aren't you on those shows? I've
been known to make an appearance. Yeah. I'll be on this. The episode's coming out this week.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's great. That is an easy place to remind people to go check out. If you are not watching the flagship show of the ACA, the nonprofits, you should in fact be doing that. But dude, Scott, thank you so much, man, for hanging out and you know, being there ready when JMike and I say dumb things and getting ready to jump in. And
I feel like I'm a kid sitting in the back seat of the car, like sitting up in the middle. It's like, oh, looking up what the grownups are doing up in front, and oh, someday I want to sit there.
Well, I'll tell you this: if JMike and I are the ones driving the car, we are all fucked. No, but
that's what makes it interesting.
That's right. We don't know how we're gonna get there or when we're gonna get there, and we don't know where we're gonna get to, but we're gonna get fucking somewhere. But seriously, I always love being here. It is such a freaking great time. I am excited to get to see you in person again, to get to hang out in Austin, Texas in a month's time from now. So guys, remember, go tiny.cc/backcruise. You can go get all the information there, get your tickets, or just send in a couple of bucks to help some people get out and have a good time. But other than that, I am going to go eat a very large pot of very many beans and probably, I don't know, go to bed or something. I'm tired. But anyway, thanks so much, you guys. We will see you next week, Sunday at 4:30 p.m. Go out there and sin or something.
What will it take for you to start opening your eyes?
Not a joke, by the way. I have a very large pot. It's like 4 pounds of beans in my kitchen. Has just been simmering this whole time. Like kidney beans, black beans, cranberry beans, if you're not familiar with those. Cannellini beans are also a part of it. Lima beans. And then split pea for some reason. Don't know how that got in there.
Watch Talk Heathen live Sundays at 1 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTH and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callth.